Good evening and welcome to this evening's webinar. Hopefully the technology is working today. Sorry for those who joined us or joined me last week. We had those kind of gremlins. Hopefully this evening you can actually hear me and see me. I'm just going to kind of ramble a little bit just as people are joining the room. I'll talk through some of the housekeeping. If you haven't done a webinar before, don't worry, I should talk you through how to interact and what you should see. You should see on your right hand side a chat box. I'm just going to turn mine on here. That's where you can ask questions. So you can just type a question at any point during this evening's webinar, and only I can see them. So it's completely confidential. No one can see you on here. And when you type a question, only I can see it. And just to make sure you've seen or found the chat box, make sure the technology is working. If you can just say hi and say whether you can hear and see me okay. And we just make sure that everything is bedded down before we launch into the content. So if you found the chat box on the right, just say hi, or make sure you can say hi, I can hear, I can see you. That'd be really helpful, just so I can make sure, the technology is working before we get too far into this evening. So that's how you ask questions at any point this evening. I was going to pause as people connect, and hopefully they can see this and hear this, and hopefully chats are coming in. There's a bit of a delay in me speaking and you hearing. You won't experience any delay, but you might. I'm kind of rambling because I know there's a bit of a delay, and that's purposeful, so you make sure you get a good experience. So it's you won't experience any delay, but there's a little bit of delay from me speaking and you hearing. So if you found the chat box, if you can just hi, excellent, they're starting to come through. So it means people can hopefully hear me and see me. So if you can say hi, I can hear you or see you, that'd be great. So I'm going to pause for a few more minutes as people are entering the room. So yeah, excellent. People are coming through, and it's like all the technology is working. That's great. So excellent. Just pausing a few more minutes as more people are arriving into the room. If you've just arrived into the room, into the webinar, there should be a chat box on your right. That's how you can ask questions this evening. Any point in this evening, don't wait for me to pause or ask the questions. If it comes to mind, just type it in. Only I can see it. It's completely private, so no one can see who's on. And it's a way just asking questions. I will pause maybe at some point, but towards the end maybe for questions. But if you can think of a question, just type it in, and I'll come to the questions either at some point during or towards the end. Excellent. So I think that's all good. Let me just going to check. You can see slide by PowerPoint. I shall promise you that. I have got a couple of slides I want to show you this evening. So I think there's most people in, just checking the chat, making sure that people can hear. We're all good to go. So welcome to this evening's webinar, and this evening we're going to dive into some of the psychological blocks that can prevent you from getting pregnant. Now, everyone's blocks could be quite unique and unique to this. There's some common trends often that people experience. There's fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. There's some common themes, but the cause of our psychological blocks can be quite unique to us as an individual, often from childhood stuff, which is why I often talk about Project U versus Project Baby, because the thinking about ourselves and life generally we bring to our fertility journey. And this evening we look at some of the principles behind what creates our human experience in this moment that keeps us stuck in these blocks. Now, obviously, when I work one-to-one, we dive into particular beliefs and thoughts and childhood patterns and all sorts of things when I'm working one-to-one. But there's certain principles behind our experience. Once we can begin to understand those, you can start to see your situation and your experience in a very different perspective. And that's almost a backdrop for my work, even one-to-one. And then within that backdrop, within that framework, I might dive into particular thoughts and beliefs and stuff with clients. But I want to share the framework for you this evening, which often is powerful in its own right, we begin to understand what's creating our experience. And before we dive into the material, I want to encourage you to listen in a particular way. Now, I remember I did a workshop about 10 years, or 12 years ago now, I think, and I spent a lot of time, effort and money to be there. And I sat there in the second row because the first row felt a bit exposed. So I sat in the second row with my pad and pen on my knee, ready to go. Really looking forward to all the wisdom and the insights and everything I was going to learn from this workshop. I spent a lot of time, effort and money to be there. I invested a lot to be there, and I was really looking forward to it. And the guy who came out to lead the workshop encouraged us to put our pads and pens down and just have an experience over the 3 days. I literally felt naked without my pad on my knee because I was terrified I wouldn't get value. I wouldn't hold on to all the nuggets of wisdom this workshop leader was going to impart. I was terrified I wouldn't get value from it. I wouldn't get the benefit from it. And I was only there for me as well as what I might learn from my clients. But I trusted him. But also I knew they were recording it. So I thought I can always get the recording, go back over the recording to hear certain bits again. And I'm recording this. So you can go back over this many times if you want. I encourage you just to listen for an experience. And what he explained was how many times we go to trainings and workshops and things like that. We listen to talks. We might make copious notes. Now you might make 500 written notes, but do they really make a difference to your life? How many times do you actually really go back over the notes? And we try and hold on to it intellectually, try to remember it. And in that case, it becomes something we need to remember and actually apply to our lives. But it's better to go away with one insight, one change of heart, one aha moment. That means you begin to see yourself or life a bit differently. And when you get that insight, that aha moment, it's not something you have to remember to apply to your life. It just happens more naturally. And I still remember that workshop 12 years ago. And I remember the quote, he quoted actually bizarrely a quote from Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, and it just almost cracked me open. I saw something about myself in that moment that I'll never forget. There was other things over the 3 days, but that particularly stood out. That workshop changed my life, not only within the subject we were talking about, but the way I engage and learn and understand and realize actually it's not whatever the speaker is saying, it's what we hear within ourselves that makes a difference. When it comes to psychological matters, when it comes to matters of the heart, it's not what the speaker says that makes the difference. It's what you hear within you. And my aim this evening is to point you back within yourself, because you have everything you need within you. But sometimes we don't really recognize that. The noise in our head drowns out our own innate well-being, our innate wisdom. My aim this evening is for you just have an experience and just notice what you notice as you listen. So I encourage you not to make notes. Just have an experience and see what shows up. That's my request for you this evening. A little bit myself, those who don't know me, my name is Russell Davis. My wife and I had a 10-year journey of infertility. First, my wife was diagnosed with fertility struggles. And she was fed up as taking medication and wanted to try and, she didn't believe she could heal herself, but manage the condition more holistically. And she started to look at ways she could do that. And we connected with a gynecologist that crossed the boundary between traditional and holistic medicine, Chinese medicine. And he believed actually she could get her full cycle back. And over an 8-year period, she changed her health and well-being and lifestyle and did all sorts of quite significant changes. And she got her full cycle for the first time. For the first time, there's no reason why she couldn't get pregnant naturally. And up to that point, we thought we're okay the fact we may not have our own children. We're both doing youth work and children's work. Children were a very big aspect of our lives. We thought, oh, we're okay with that. We could always foster, we could always adopt. We came to this point where actually having children became a real possibility. We realized we were just kidding ourselves about being okay with it. It was almost a protection mechanism from really feeling the pain of not being able to have the thing we most wanted in the world. So after about a year or so, less than a year trying, as you know, you become quite experts on this journey. We knew what we were doing. And after almost a year of trying, we just had a hint that something else was wrong. And at that point, I had my first test. And no one suggested I have a test up to that point. And my test results were disastrous across the board. In fact, the doctor asked me whether I'd been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. As far as I know, I hadn't. And we felt like we run a marathon, only to get to the finish line and say, oh no, you haven't finished. You've got to do it all again. This time it's going to be more difficult. It just felt like a huge kick in the teeth. We felt we're doing everything we can, and almost life wasn't giving us a break. It felt quite cruel. I thought we gave us a break, and then suddenly it kind of whipped it away. And that's, as you know, that's what this journey can be like, such an emotional roller coaster. And to cut a long story short, I'll go more into the depth of the journey from there, but just to fill in, the end is that we did actually go on to conceive naturally against all odds just before starting ICSI. It was a 1 in a billion chance we were told it could happen naturally, and it did. We weren't even trying at that point because we were told there was no point in trying. But we can look back and see how much our mind and emotions played a role in our journey. And we firmly believe if we knew then what we know now, it would not have been a 10-year journey. And the fundamental aspect of this is what I'm going to share tonight about what's creating our experience. And as I was saying, it is really, really tough journey. And I just want to start tonight by let's accept how really tough it is. Often we soldier on and we soldier on. I just want to pause for a moment, just to acknowledge this is really tough. And most of our friends and family don't understand how tough it is, especially at this time of year, particularly at this time of year. So just honor yourself on this journey. You know, Harvard University did a study that showed the stress levels of women going through infertility were equivalent to those with AIDS, cancer, and heart disease. And no one tells them just to relax. It is really, really tough. And let's just acknowledge that. Give yourself some self-compassion. Just take a breath and know it's okay to look after yourself. And I encourage you, even over the Christmas period and the holiday period coming up, that you do that. You take steps to make sure your needs are being met. And it means just not going to that party because you just can't face it. That's okay. Who cares what people think? It is your journey, your life. If you don't look after yourself, other people necessarily won't. So I just want to acknowledge that I don't talk about, yeah, now do this, now do this, now do this. I want to take a breath. And let's just acknowledge how tough it is. And I don't want you to think, from here you've got more things to do. That's not my intent at all. My intent from this evening is to help you tune into something you've got already. Some inner resources, inner understanding you didn't realize you even had. So you don't come away with other things to do on a to-do list. If I just do this, if I just do this. It is really tough. And in fact, Cardiff University did a study looking at some of the reasons why people stop IVF treatment or fertility treatment. The first one was postponement of treatment, where they said to the clinic, we're going to stop for a while. And unknown is actually the clinic didn't register the main reason why they chose to stop treatment. But number two, psychological burden and physical burden. So psychological burden is there, number two. And that's the emotional stress, the whole roller coaster where people find they just cannot take it anymore. So they stop treatment, they don't carry on treatment, they don't do another cycle. Number three, relational problems and personal reasons. So relational problems is where it's impacting the relationship. And they decide, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. Personal reasons might be maybe they've moved away or change of circumstances. For treatment rejection, where either their body has not engaged with the treatment or they decide they can't take the treatment anymore. The injections and everything else, they just want to stop. They don't want to go through that again from a treatment point of view, from a medical point of view, what it's doing to their body. Number five, organisational issues. Maybe they have moved away and they're going to a different clinic, or maybe they're changed job and moving abroad. So there's kind of organisational issues. Maybe they've stopped treatment at that particular clinic. And number five, clinic issues, where actually a lot of that clinic issues, if you look into the detail, it's where people don't feel supported by the clinic. So they've decided to not continue with that clinic. So psychological burdens and relational problems and personal problems, they're a massive factor in why people stop treatment. So let's once again acknowledge this journey is not necessarily easy. It's not easy. And often, say, our friends and family don't recognize that. Often, a lot of medical professionals don't recognize that. And we need to let go of them expecting them to do that. We need to let go of expecting people to understand. Because it's often they're just not unless they've been through it. And to honour and nurture yourself in this, making sure your needs are being met. So I just want to acknowledge that and say that before we dive into too much of the detail. Now, before I get into the kind of the framework, the principles behind our experience that underpin everything I do, that mean I often think it sounds quite harsh. I see my clients as lemmings heading towards a cliff because they're looking in the wrong place for everything they're looking, peace of mind and freedom and flow back to, I think of a flow back to life. And these principles help them point in a different direction. But before I do that, I wanted to touch on the power of the mind. It's another aspect of my work. There's a kind of the psychological coaching and therapy, but also there's the kind of hypnosis and harnessing the mind-body link. But for me and my own journey, I did so much to try and improve my fertility, mind and body in one system. I truly believe that. I did lots of things to improve my fertility from a body point of view, acupuncture, lifestyle, herbs, and all sorts of stuff. And I went on a 4-month program to try and improve my fertility. But after 4 months, it actually got slightly worse. And I could look back and realize it's my fear of those things not working undermined everything I was doing. And when we do things out of fear, often we're actually feeding the fear. And that fear is doing more damage than the good things we're doing to improve our fertility. So my wish for tonight is for you to let go of some of that fear. That's my aim. And to allow your mind and body to be doing what it really needs to do. And your mind and body are an amazing, amazing system. We talk about the mind-body link, but the mind and body are actually one system. And there's a growing body of research that shows how much the mind affects the body and the body affects the mind. Ellen Langer is a professor at Harvard University. She spent over 30 years studying the mind-body link. She's done a number of experiments. Some are quite famous, some have been involved in TV programs. There's one in the late 70s. She took a bunch of men, they're all about their 80s, so they're quite elderly, and she took a bunch of men and she put them into this, like a big brother house, a house where they lived together for 2 weeks. And this whole house was decorated from the 1950s, kind of 30 years prior. So everything was 30 years prior. So the decor, the radio stations, the magazines and newspapers. Oh, excuse me, where it came from. So everything was decorated from 30 years prior. And they did a bunch of psychometric and physical tests before they went in and then repeated them when they came out. And of course, they started reminiscing about the old times. And they started getting into that old mindset. And even Helen Langer was amazed at the impact. Some of the guys went in hobbling on sticks, but came out playing touch rugby. They were just transformed in memory, mental ability, and physical ability as well. There's another study, and they came back a few weeks later, they had a 35% muscle improvement on their little finger, without even lifting a finger. They just imagined doing it. So your mind and body are an amazing system. Your unconscious mind controls all your bodily functions. And sometimes it can do a little bit of help. Even in the world of fertility, Boston IVF did a study with Harvard Medical School, and they had a bunch of women going through IVF and a bunch of women going through IVF, the same clinic, but also going through a mind-body program supporting their journey. The average success rate of the women going through IVF was 20%. The average success rate of those going through IVF with the mind-body support was 50%. That often we're not aware of and not utilising. But often our fear is undermining it. And you might be doing loads of things to try and improve your fertility, but it's not what you do, it's why you do it. If you're doing those things out of fear, that fear may be doing more damage than those things. In my experience, it's when you take inspired action, that's what makes a difference. And if stopping something for a while feels like a relief, then do it. If taking your daily temperatures is becoming a chore, stop doing it. It's no longer serving you. Take a break, maybe come back to another time. Doing everything you can possibly to try and get pregnant is not going to serve you. It's about doing what you feel inspired is going to help you. It's about doing what you feel in your deepest gut and soul think is the right thing for you. And doing everything is not always the right thing. There's plenty of women get pregnant without any of these things. You don't need to do everything to tick all the boxes. And again, often it's about fear. Maybe fear of regret, fear of not doing that one thing that could have made the difference. It's about trusting your instinct, trusting your intuition. And that's what this journey is about. And that's what this evening is going to hopefully point you back towards. Trusting your inner instinct, your inner intuition. And the one thing that stops us, well, three things that stop us doing that, and three things that keep us stuck in that fear mindset, is this very, very busy mind. And there's three, I call, principles behind our human experience that often keep us, or misunderstanding those principles keep us in a busy mind. And the more we understand these principles behind our experience, the less we get tricked by this really, really busy mind, the less we go on a journey with all this overthinking, the more we can tune into something deeper, this space under our thinking, this space we can connect with when our mind is quiet. And that's the place of knowing we're okay, whatever happens. We're born with it. So I want to explore what these three principles are. And I often frame as three misunderstandings. The first misunderstanding is a misunderstanding of the nature of thought. Now, when I use the word thought, I'm not just meaning the thinking in your head, the cognitive, conscious thinking in your head. I'm talking about our human ability to have thought. A thought as a concept, thought as a construct. Because often we're so focused on the thinking in our head in this moment. Often we're so focused on the content of our thinking, or even the volume of our thinking. And most of my clients say they think too much. I think many of us almost are addicted to our thinking, because the thinking tricks us, saying, you need me, I can help you. These problems aren't going to go away unless you think about them. Well, the truth is you get the best solutions when you're not actually thinking about the situation. You get the best ideas when we're in the shower walking the dog. So for me, it's our relationship with thought. It's a misunderstanding of the nature of thought that keeps us going round and round and round. It's like a dog or puppy. A puppy often or sometimes chases its tail because it misunderstands the nature of the tail. It thinks the tail is separate to itself. As soon as the dog realizes the tail is part of the dog, it stops chasing it. That's why most puppies go out of it. And we have a misunderstanding of the nature of thought. It means we keep chasing our thinking. Well, we're one thought away from getting peace of mind. But the truth is, you can't control your thinking. Trying to fight thought with thought is really hard work. Really hard work. But the good news is we don't need to. Because we understand the true nature of thought. There's a couple of aspects of it. One is it's spontaneous. You cannot control your thinking. It's completely spontaneous. You couldn't choose your next thought even if you wanted to. We're not beings, we're not thinking beings, we're beings that have thought. We have this ability to create thoughts of all different shapes and sizes. Square triangles, blue circles, pink dots, all sorts of different shapes and sizes, different types of thought, different content of thought can come into our consciousness, come into our awareness. And that's never the problem. It's like a conveyor belt of thought. And left to its own devices, it just moves on. They just move on. We don't give them a second thought, they just move on. They don't bother us. We don't go on a journey with them. It's like crazy thoughts. We all have crazy thoughts, if we're honest. I could be in a queue and be in a hurry and think, was I push that person out of the way? No, I'd never do it. And those thoughts are gone and forgotten about as quickly as they come in. Because I don't give them a second thought. I don't judge myself for having them. I take no meaning from it. And it's soon forgotten about. It's like clouds on a breeze. But what happens is, though, we get a particular thought come into our consciousness and we think it matters. We give it a second thought, or a third thought, or a fourth thought. We go on a journey with it. It's not the thought that's the problem. It's our relationship with it. It's whether we think it matters or not. That's what makes a difference, our relationship with thought. The more we see the true nature of thought, we don't have to give it a second thought. We judge these thoughts are more important than these thoughts. And we see what they are. They're all thought. Everything is thought. 100% of our human experience comes from thought. It's all thought. And the good news about thought is you might have a little thought storm, if I can find the camera. And our guys go round and round and round and round. We're worried about this, we're worried about that. But it settles automatically. It's a self-correcting system. You couldn't hold on to a thought or a feeling forever if you wanted to. It just settles. And we're not thinking about it. Inadvertently, when we've got like a thought storm going on and we're trying to fix it, we're trying to resolve it, we're trying to think our way to peace of mind, we're inadvertently putting more energy into it. But the truth is, it's a self-correcting system. Which is why you find moments when you find a sense of peace and calmness and being okay without doing anything. You just forgotten to think about stuff. And we find those moments of peace. So thought is spontaneous. Thought is like clouds on a breeze, and we allow this self-correcting system. But habitually, we roll our sleeves up and we're trying to interfere with the system. We're trying to fix it. And that's not the thought that causes the problem. It's our relationship with thought as a concept. We have a particular thought or an experience and we judge it, we try and resent it, we try to get rid of it. And that's just adding more and more thinking into it, adding more thinking into the mix. So the first misunderstanding is a misunderstanding of the nature of thought. The more we see it for what it is, the more we know we're okay. Of where our human experience comes from, where our emotions, where our feelings come from. We tend to think we're feeling X because of Y. I'm feeling angry because that person just was rude to me. I'm feeling upset because this thing's just happened. I'm feeling sad because my boss just shouted at me, wherever it may be. We think we're responding to circumstances in this physical world. But the truth is, nothing makes us feel anything. If it was the circumstances that made us feel something, two things would happen. One is, our experience would never change until the circumstances changed. But it doesn't work like that. Some days feel better than others. If it was the circumstances that created our inner experience, then everyone would have the same inner experience in that circumstance. But again, it doesn't work like that. You can have a number of people in the same situation, but having a very different experience of it. For example, some emergency service workers might go to a traumatic scene and some get a McDonald's on the way home and others are signed off for PTSD for 6 months. They both had a very different experience of the same circumstance. So if it's not the circumstances that create our experience, what is it? Well, it's thought. We are living in the experience of our perception of the situation, of us and the situation. 100% of our experience comes from thought. Our minds are not like a camera. We're not taking in information and processing it and creating an experience. Our minds are like a projector. We're projecting out our perception of reality, and we're looking and we're seeing, we're experiencing that like a movie. And it's just like a movie. The best films that you enjoy are the ones where at times you forget it's a film. You're so absorbed in the acting, the special effects, the directorship. There are times we forget it's a film. We don't spend the whole duration of the film forgetting it's not real, because if that happened, we'd ring the police if someone got shot. We dip in and out of reality. But we spend more time forgetting it's not real in the films we most enjoy. The films we least enjoy, we're just completely disengaged, watching it like a critic. And life is like a film. You're projecting out your perception of reality. That's what's creating your experience. And your mind has the most powerful special effects in the world. It has your feelings. So we do create it's a real feeling, whether it's anger, sadness, love, joy. We create a physical experience. But that experience is created by thought. Every perceptual experience you have comes from thought. Even pain. Now you might have a toothache or a broken bone or a pulled muscle. There's a physical source of that pain. But your experience of that pain comes from thought. Sometimes it might be agony, other moments you're not even aware of it because your mind's somewhere else. It doesn't work outside in. Nothing makes us feel anything. It only works inside out. It's the only way it works. 100% of the time. If we think it works outside in, we get very frustrated with the situation because we can't see a way of changing it. So we think we're stuck in this way of being or way of feeling. And that can lead to frustration and, again, a busy mind. If you think it works outside in, if we think it's us the circumstance creating it, we can feel like a victim. We feel like it's never going to change. We feel fear that we're not ever going to be at peace again, be content. When we realise it works inside out, it's our thought in this moment that's creating our experience. And the next moment, or in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a day's time, we could be feeling very different because our state of mind changes. It goes up and it goes down. Thoughts are fluid. You couldn't hold on to an emotional experience forever, even if you wanted to. It's just impossible. And when we're in the experience and we think it's us, who we are, I thought I was a warrior. I thought it was my personality type. Not true. No one's born a warrior. No one's born with low self-confidence. No one's born with fears. And you're born with a fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. We tend to grow out of those. Everything else is learned. We create this perception of ourself and life through learning, which means you can unlearn it. That's the beauty of this. You can unlearn it. You can make your lenses clearer. But even just knowing you're wearing these lenses can make a difference. Realize it's not your circumstances. It's not you. It's your perception of it. It's the story you're telling yourself. And the thought tends to be past or future. We're not actually in the here and now. We're telling us a story about what this situation means for our future. But nothing can predict the future, not even your thinking. Nothing. The future is unknown. It's an incomplete equation by its very nature. But this busy mind is trying to work out what it needs, what we need, what circumstances we need now and in the future to be happy, to be content, to be at peace. This busy mind, it's got heart's in the right place. It really wants us to be content. It really wants us to be at peace. But it's just misguided. It's looking in the wrong place for that. And this is the third misunderstanding. A misunderstanding where that comes from. Where peace, happiness, security, where our well-being comes from. Where our sense of okayness comes from. Because this busy mind, this outside-in thinking, thinks it is in circumstances. If I had more money, I'll be okay. If I had this, I'll be okay. But I'll be okay when? Or I'll be okay if. And it was in the lowest point in our journey, kind of 8 years into our journey, and I tried everything to try and improve my fertility. I did another test, it got slightly worse. So I said, there's nothing I can do about this. Nothing. We're in the hands of the clinic. And it wasn't looking good. I went into this bit of a crisis in a way, because I hadn't realised that to that point. Unconsciously, I'd be living, I'll be okay when. I'll be okay when my mum thinks I'm okay. I'll be okay when I get the good exam results. My teachers are pleasing me and I prove my worth. I'll be okay when I get a degree. I'll be okay when I've got the good career. I'll be okay when I've got, the car. I'll be okay when I'm married. I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when we have a baby. It's always the next thing. And suddenly the next thing, the key thing, looked like it wasn't going to happen. And it sent me into a bit of a, psychological tailspin. Where does happiness come from? But I wasn't aware that was the mindset I was bringing to life. I was living very much outside in. I was a people pleaser. I'll be okay if people think good of me. I spent 36 years living the life other people expected of me, not being true to myself. And that's my wish for my clients. They live life from the inside out, true to their self. For me, that gives freedom. That brings flow back to life. That tunes them back into their, what I call their innate well-being. Because we're born with it. We're born with it. Babies are not born without complete psychological well-being. Yeah, they need people to look after them physically, but they don't question their okayness. They don't compare themselves to others. They don't think they've got low self-esteem. They just know they're okay. Not 100% of the time. They can have a toddler kind of a tantrum about something, but here's the thing, going back to misunderstanding where our experience comes from, the more we know where our experience comes from, it's thought. Whatever that experience is, we don't have to be scared of it. Pain, anger, fear. We can just have it. We can just experience it. Knowing it's thought, it's going to move on. Knowing it's not actually anything about life now or in the future. Taking no meaning from it. That it's a thought storm passing through. The more we see it that way, the more we know what's creating our experience, we don't have to be scared of any of our experiences. And that's what a toddler does. It gets caught outside in. It gets upset about the fact they can't have a sweet. But it's not scared of that experience of upset. It's not pleasant. It's not scared of it. It's not resisting it. It's not trying to move it on. It's not doing its mindfulness. It's not doing its breathing. It's just experiencing it. Because sorry, what's what happened there? Somehow I've got two connections now. I'll carry on. Yeah, so deep down, it knows it's okay. And it goes back to being okay. The kind of tantrum passes, it goes back to being okay. And that's the same with us. The more we know where experience comes from, the feelings come and the feelings go. We don't have to get caught up in it. So it's a misunderstanding where experience comes from. It's a misunderstanding where our well-being comes from. We're born with it. You know, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. What I mean by that is our soul is formless. There's an energy behind life that we're never truly going to understand. But we're made of it and we're part of it. It's loving, it's divine. There's an energy behind life that hangs life together, that enables a cut to heal itself without us doing anything. We're made of that energy, we're part of that energy. It doesn't make anything that needs to prove itself. It doesn't make anything that is faulty in any way. Our well-being is within us, we're born with it. So there's a misunderstanding of the nature of thought, a misunderstanding where experience comes from, and the misunderstanding where our well-being comes from. For me, they're like three misunderstandings or principles, like three legs of a milking stool. They all point towards the same thing. And these principles of our human experience are at play whether we know it or not. But the more we see it for what it is, the more we know what's creating our experience. We don't get tricked by the thinking. I'll say, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if. Because when we go on those journeys, we just tie ourselves into knots. That creates all sorts of fear and tension in our system. And the more we let go of that and find this place of peace, we can continue our journey knowing we're okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a baby. But often it becomes a psychological need. Part of us thinks we need it to be okay, to be content, to be fulfilled. And the more we see through the illusion of all these thoughts and experiences, we know we're okay. This doesn't mean we don't have fear, we don't have pain, we don't have worry. It means we know where experience is coming from. So we don't have to be scared of it, we can allow it. We can allow it and it just moves on. And fresh thinking is always coming in, always moving back to peace. It's that self-correcting system. So for me, they're the three misunderstandings behind our experience. For me, they're the principles, the fundamentals, the framework which points us in a different direction. that allows us to know we have everything we need. I want you to be aware how that feels when you hear that. And so you write questions as you consider how that feels. And don't try and get this, just notice how it feels. Allow that feeling within you, follow that feeling. Let that feeling guide you. There's information, that feeling your soul is getting. Just notice how it feels. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box now. I'm happy to take any questions on this or any aspect of the mind and your journey. Our mind is the most amazing tool. It's a self-correcting tool, it's a self-healing tool. Just like if you run out of breath, you run for a bus and you feel you're panting, you run out of breath, your body just calms down naturally. And our mind's the same. It just calms down naturally. It's a self-correcting system. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the box. I'm happy to take any questions. So I'm not sure what's happened to the screen. Somehow I got split screen, so I'm waiting to see if any questions come in and see if I can just fix this split screen thing. No, just so you can still hear me and see me, it's the main thing. So any questions? No questions yet. And often people ask me, okay, what advice would you say, what would you recommend people do? Or I'd say the main thing I'd say is just to be aware of all the things you're doing. If anything feels heavy, if anything feels like a burden, stop. Take a break from it. Trust your instinct. Your body, your soul is the best guidance you can ever have. A little voice inside that, this is like a brass band in our head often, there's a little still soft flute within us that knows what's right for us, that knows what's best for us. Just be mindful of that, and often you hear that in moments of quiet. You know, this still soft flute. It's very quiet, but it's quite clear when you hear it. It's often kind of grounded in common sense. And sometimes it doesn't feel good when you hear it and acknowledge it, because sometimes it means stepping out of your comfort zone. So it doesn't always feel good, but it feels right. It feels right. We're either being motivated by fear or in a state of growth. It can feel scary. But the more we understand where our experience is coming from, we have to be scared of the fear. We can be aware of fear, but know what is the right thing for us is. The more you know where experience is coming from, you realize people can't have the power to upset you. It's your thinking about it. Friends and family say the most unhelpful things. But we all live in our own model of the world. We all have our own thinking about things, and everyone's thinking is different. We can't expect everyone to think the same as us. When we realize we all have different models of the world, we have more understanding and compassion for other people, and we can see they're just trying their best. They just don't get it. They're caught into their stuff, their fears, their thoughts, their beliefs. It's all their stuff they're projecting it. And the more we see that, we don't take it so personally. We don't expect a certain response. So the more we understand how, or where our experience comes from, we can see how it affects each other. Got questions come in. I find it hard to tell people IVF hasn't worked again, but I can't keep it secret to many people involved. I can't keep it secret, too many people involved. Any suggestions? I feel a break a little beat each time I tell people it hasn't worked. I feel I break a little. So the question is, I find it hard to tell people IVF hasn't worked again, but I can't keep it a secret because too many people are involved. I feel I break a little each time I tell people it hasn't worked. Great question. So again, it's not the situation, it's the meaning we take from it. So okay, if IVF hasn't worked, yeah, that is really painful. But the pain isn't telling you anything about your future. You can't feel the future. But sometimes we feel a break a little. Every time we vocalize it, it makes it real. We speak it out loud, it makes it real. So we feel it. It feels really painful. When we speak it out loud, we realize this is what's going on. We can't deny the reality of it. But the pain is not coming from the situation. It's subconsciously you're telling yourself a story about what it means. That means it may never happen. I may never have children. I may never be happy. I may never feel complete. It's all that backstory. That's what's creating your pain, not the situation in this moment. If you were 100% in this moment, you wouldn't necessarily feel that pain. Because in this moment, we have everything we need to be okay. We're designed as a human being to be in reality. Our emotions are telling us we're no longer present. If you've got an emotion like pain or anger or fear, we're no longer present. We're caught into the story in our head that's so plausible, it's believable. It's realistic, it's believable, but it's still fantasy because nothing can predict the future, not even your thinking. Nothing can predict the future, not even your thinking. So my advice would be aware of what's creating that pain. Just because you're feeling pain doesn't mean what you think it means. Your pain doesn't even know you failed IVF. Here's the thing, yeah, your pain doesn't even know you failed IVF. And that sounds a bit bizarre, but it's true. Your pain doesn't know anything about your circumstances. Feelings, per se, don't know about your circumstances because you're feeling one thing, thought in this moment. 100% of experience comes from thought. Your feelings have one job, to let you know how much thinking you've got in this moment. So it's not saying any suggestions to avoid the pain. You can't avoid the pain. Thoughts and feelings are spontaneous. It's being aware of what's creating it. It's not what you think it is. Allow the pain. But know it's the thought storm in this moment. And you'll see the situation differently very soon. So this is where I'm saying it's not about things you have to do. It's just seeing things differently, seeing what's creating your experience differently gives you different opportunity, gives you an opportunity to have a different experience. Seeing what's creating your experience is a byproduct of that, which means you tend to have more peace of mind, more emotional resilience. I hope that's been helpful. Any other questions in the last few minutes? I do want to keep tight time, just honour the timing of the webinar. I know we're all very busy people, particularly this time of year. And thank you for those who have joined me this evening, having had the fail start last time. I just want to reiterate that point there, that this is not about doing anything. It's about starting to see what's creating your experience. It's like having a friend or acquaintance you thought you knew and trusted. Then someone tells you something about them and you have a change of heart about them. You suddenly see them in a different light. You have to remember to apply that change of heart. Next time you think about them, you think, oh, no, they're not like this, they're like this. You just have a change of heart. It comes naturally. The new way of seeing it just sticks. And for me, the more we start to see what's behind our human experience, we have a change of heart about the nature of a change of heart about what's creating our experience, a change of heart about where our well-being comes from. The byproduct of that is we tend to have greater peace of mind. The byproduct of that is we tend to be more grounded in this moment. The byproduct is we have less fear. And anything we do to improve our fertility, even like visualization, hypnosis and stuff like that, can have more impact. And bear in mind, this is just a framework pointing in a different direction, hopefully. Of course, when I work one-to-one, we get into the nitty-gritty of what any particular thoughts or beliefs that often come from childhood. Because here's the thing, the nature of thought, the lens we look at life through, our perception of reality. Our perception of reality, our particular filter we're looking at life through, is often shaped from childhood. And we develop thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and life that sometimes serve us in some way as a child, maybe protected us from being in trouble or helped us feel more loved, whatever it may be. But it's no longer needed, but it carries on out of habit. We have this kind of childhood filter of thoughts we're looking at life through without even knowing it, because it's invisible. And we think we're experiencing life, but we're experiencing like an inner child's experience of life. And we can let that go, because it's all learned behaviour. We can let it go. We can undo all that. We can let that go. But just understanding its thought can be powerful enough in its own right. No, you're not broken. It's not the circumstances. It's this pair of glasses we're looking at life through, we forget we're doing it. And the more we see it for what it is, we can tune into our real sense of self, our true sense of self. But those are okay. That you're going to be okay, whatever happens, you're going to be okay. And when you know that, it takes pressure off the process. And when you know that, you can continue the journey with peace, without giving up. And that place of peace without giving up does exist. And it's from that space that magic can happen. And for me, that's us minus all our psychological baggage and fears and blocks, which are thoughts in this moment, stories we tell ourselves unconsciously. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to connect with you soon. Take care.